The year was 2014. I was on a routine business trip from the United Kingdom to New York City. I boarded the flight and everything was routine. I sat down in my seat and was relieved to find out that no one was assigned next to me. I had the whole row to myself. Tired from a long day, I dozed off in my seat. When I woke up, the plane was already at cruising altitude. The seatbelt sign was off and people were moving about the cabin. The flight attendants were already serving food and drinks. Feeling refreshed and energized after my short power nap, I decided to open my laptop and get some work done. After reading and responding to a few emails, I started to get tired again. Right when I was about to doze off again, I received a notification of a message. Weirdly enough, the message displayed on my command prompt box. This struck me as odd and out of place. "Hey, are you there?" the message read. "Yes, who is this? And how are you talking to me?" I asked. He continued, "Don't worry about any of that right now. I'm about to hack into the plane's systems. My appetite for power and control is high right now. I want you to be a helpless witness to what is about to occur." "What the hell are you talking about?" I asked. "I am talking about controlling the plane's systems. With a basic Bluetooth accessible device, you can access the most vulnerable equipment on a plane. Their anti-theft software has not caught up with the times. I am about to make their mistake evident," the person replied. I thought to myself, am I just being pranked? Was this person even on my plane? I didn't know how to really handle this situation. I decided to call their bluff. "Well, if you can really hack the plane, let's see you try," I said. "I thought you'd never ask. Let's start with something simple. How about the fasten seatbelt sign? It will turn on in 3, 2, 1, 0. As soon as 0 displayed across my screen, the fasten seatbelt sign came on. I started to get nervous. I thought to myself, was this guy really controlling the plane? Shortly after the sign came on, there was some turbulence in the air. I figured this guy made a lucky guess, and the pilots were the ones to switch the sign on due to the incoming bumpiness. I responded in the chat, "Lucky guess, you just happened to type that when the captain was already planning on switching the seatbelt sign off due to turbulence. I figured you'd say that. Let's move on to some more interesting equipment. Do you know what the elevator is on a plane?" the person asked. "No idea," I said back. "It is the part of the plane that makes it pitch up and down. I can access and control it any way I'd like." "Okay, well I've got my peanuts now and I'm waiting for the show," I said in a sarcastic manner. "You might want to put up your tray table right now. Things might get a little messy for you." All of a sudden the plane dropped. My stomach sank. Fear gripped my whole body. I had a split-second belief that the unknown person was actually manipulating the airplane. That thought faded as soon as the plane leveled out. I'm a frequent flyer, and I've had some bad experiences, so I just chalked this up to severe turbulence. I still did think it was strange that the plane just started flying smoothly again all of a sudden. In past experiences, after severe turbulence, there are still some slight bumps before you transition back to smooth flight. I responded, "Lucky guess again. We just happened to fly in some turbulence. Give me a few minutes, and we will see if you just think it is a lucky guess." The person's last response didn't sit well with me. I decided to close my laptop and put it away, wanting to forget about the conversation for a while. I glanced around the plane's cabin. Everything seemed normal. Some people were napping, some were conversating, and others were glued to their iPads or iPhones. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. I glanced to my right. Across the aisle, I noticed a man typing away on his laptop. I tried to look for any markings on the device giving away a brand name. There were none. His appearance was also very peculiar. He was wearing round spectacles. The glasses were dark and non-transparent. This hit me as odd, because normally reading glasses are see-through. His whole appearance seemed out of place on an airplane. The flight attendant interrupted my thoughts as she rolled the food cart up to me. "Would you like anything else to drink, sir?" "Yes, I would like Captain and Coke. Also, did you think that turbulence we had back there was a bit odd?" She responded with a chuckle. "Oh no, honey, I've experienced way worse. I just thought it was weird how the airplane pitched down and all of a sudden started to fly normal again. I'm a frequent flyer, and it seemed a little odd to me, that's all," I replied. "Well, don't worry. I'm sure the Captain and Coke will smooth you out," she said as she handed me my drink. I took a sip and placed it down on my tray table. I took another glance at the strange man sitting across the ways from me. He began typing away on his computer. I tried to glance at his screen, but it was dark. He must have had a privacy screen of some kind. After taking a few more sips of my drink, I mustered up the courage to open my laptop. The command prompt box was still there with our old messages. I looked to my right again. The strange man was still typing away. As soon as he finished typing, a new message flashed across my screen. In 30 seconds, the plane is going to bank 90 degrees to the right. I would highly recommend you finish your Captain and Coke. I know you are getting a little nervous right now, so I think drinking it would be the best option before it spills everywhere, he typed. Blood drained away from my face. This had to be the strange guy across from me. I reassured myself that this could all be a coincidence, from the seatbelt sign to the sudden loss of altitude. But I still had a weary feeling that he might actually be in some control of the plane. I tried to remain calm and confident in my replies to him. I responded, "Yeah, whatever you say, Mr. Plane Hacker. You are just a troll hungry for power. I deal with your kind all the time." "Well, you are right about one thing. I am hungry for power, but I am far from just a measly troll. You will soon find that out if you haven't already," he replied. Now I was on edge. Was this guy really going to bank the plane 90 degrees to the right? The plane would be nearly inverted. If this guy was the real deal, this next test would prove him right or wrong. "We are almost ready to go. 3, 2, 1, 0. Right on cue, the whole airplane banked right. My drink immediately slid off my table. As the plane continued its bank, bags, suitcases, and belongings fell from the overhead compartments. It was absolute chaos. The plane gradually regained control. My stare darted over at the strange man, and he immediately met my gaze. He gave me a slight smirk and stared back down at his computer. My heart dropped. I knew it was this guy controlling the plane. But what could I do about it? The captain made an announcement over the loudspeaker. "Ladies and gentlemen, I am really sorry about the inconvenience. The plane seems to have an issue, and we will be turning back and making an emergency landing in Heathrow. Please change your travel plans accordingly." I decided to get back on my laptop and send this guy a strong message. I typed back, "You better not do anything else. I know who you are. I will report you to the flight attendants. When we land, the authorities will arrest you." "Haha, sure. So what are you going to tell them? A crazy man is controlling the airplane on his laptop? I'm sure that will fly with them," he replied. This guy was getting under my skin, but he had a point. Who the hell would believe this? I knew I had to try something soon, or else the whole plane could be in danger. Another message came through. "I've got a good trick coming up. Have you ever been on a flight with an engine failure?" he asked. "Cut this out. You can go to jail for a very, very long time for this. You better not even try," I sternly replied. He replied with another countdown sequence. 3, 2, 1, 0. As soon as 0 displayed on my screen, the left engine spooled down and shut off. Now I started to get mad. The loudspeaker came on again. "Ladies and gentlemen, we seem to have lost an engine. Not to worry, this plane can fly on one engine with no problem. We will be landing shortly." I closed my laptop and decided I needed to take some action. I looked back at the man and he gave me a larger smirk than before. This infuriated me. I was not going to just sit here and be killed by some weird guy with spectacles on. I pressed the flight attendant button on the ceiling above me. A few moments later, the same woman that served me before came to my service. "Hey, is there a problem?" she asked. I tried to keep my voice down so the man across from me wouldn't hear. "Yes, I'm afraid the man behind you with the round spectacles on is controlling the plane. It is hard to explain, but he is responsible for the sudden bank and the loss of the engine," I said. I could almost see the amusement in her eyes. She wasn't buying it for a second. "Sir, I'm sure everything is going to be okay. That alcohol might have gone to your head. It is normal for that to happen at higher altitudes," she said plainly. Now I lost it. I looked past the flight attendant and stared at the man with the spectacles. I raised my hand and pointed at him. While pointing, I yelled, "This is the man! He is controlling the airplane! Take his laptop! All the evidence is there!" The passengers around me gasped in disbelief. The flight attendant immediately called for backup. More flight attendants came with zip ties. "Sir, we are going to have to detain you. You are a danger to this flight and the rest of the passengers." While being zip-tied, I glanced back at the spectacled man. He gave me an even wider grin. I yelled at him, "Once they found out what you did, you're done. You are going to prison for life." He replied in a deep, creepy voice, "Learn to control your alcohol, young one," and laughed at me. After we landed, I was treated like a terrorist. After answering 1,000 questions, I was set free. The authorities never believed me. The man was never caught, and I hope no one ever has the same experience on a plane. It's a common misconception that the dark web is some form of evil internet where all you can find is drugs and criminals. In fact, Most of it is completely harmless, even normal. There are plenty of shopping websites hidden around the place. A lot of them have their own custom advertisements. And that's exactly where my story begins, with an ad calling for test subjects. It had a significant cash prize and involved little more than sitting in front of a computer for a weekend without internet and contact with the outside world. As sketchy as it initially sounded, it was in fact presented in a fairly legitimate way. As a college dropout on the verge of getting evicted from my apartment, I jumped at the opportunity to grab a little extra cash. I filled out a contact form and got in contact with a very friendly receptionist to explain the procedure. The idea was to do a brain scan, copying my neural pattern onto a computer and mixing it with an AI. It would all take place on site at some medical facility I'd never heard about. Transport would be arranged by them as well as food. On the pickup day, I found an unmarked indistinct vehicle parked in my driveway. A man stepped out from the vehicle and escorted me inside. Once there, he handed me a bunch of papers to read through and sign. The car didn't even start to move until I'd confirmed that I consented to the experiment. Once done, they tinted the windows in such a way that I couldn't possibly see anything outside. Then we went on our way. It would take about an hour of driving on a bumpy road before we reached the location. By then, I hadn't the faintest clue where we were. The building we parked in front of resembled a warehouse, clearly a recent build. The escort rushed me inside the building, trying their best to prevent me from observing my surroundings too closely. The hallways were naked, rid of art and furniture, as if the entire place had sprung up overnight. They led me to an office with a leading doctor inside. "So you're our latest subject? Did you manage to get through the exceptionally boring document?" he asked with a chuckle. He seemed friendlier than the rest of the staff, which put me mildly at ease. "Yeah, I guess I did." "So do you understand the procedure?" I nodded, though it was weird that I had to stay there for such a long time following the scan. Though I understood the very basics of the procedure, I hadn't the faintest clue as to why they wanted to do it. "Questions?" the doctor asked. "Why did I find your ad on a dark website? Why not post it literally anywhere else?" He paused for a moment, mulling over what to say. "Well, this experiment goes a bit into the gray area in terms of morality. It's not like it will hurt or alter your life in any way. Technically speaking, you won't even be our subject." "Because you're making a copy of my brain?" I asked. "Exactly. A carbon copy of your neural network, put into a digital space. We just need you to stick around and observe it, so we can pick out any missing pieces." He went on to explain the details on the procedure in layman's terms. The idea that a copy of my mind existed somewhere else was mildly bothersome, but money was leading my motivation. Following the final agreement, they strapped a helmet to my head and left me alone for the next few hours. It was a heavy piece of equipment, and by the end of the session, I could barely keep my head up. The second phase of the project required me to be locked into the room with my AI brother for the next 48 hours. The room itself was a windowless box with little to no furniture and a monitor attached to the wall with a keyboard and nothing else. On the screen, the same dark web page I'd found the ad on was preloaded. Pretty much all it contained was a chat box. "Hello?" I typed in. "Where am I?" The computer immediately responded. It was an easy enough question, but to explain it to a copy of my mind was a daunting task all on its own. "You're inside a computer at a medical facility," I said. "Why can't I see anything?" the AI responded. It was a question I wasn't prepared to answer. I'd never thought about the implications of putting a living mind inside a computer, much less what they'd see and experience while inside. "Do you remember what happened?" I asked, ignoring the question. "I don't know. It's all a bit hazy. I can't remember anything." "Do you know who you are?" There was a pause. I could hear the computer work, filled with information it wasn't supposed to have. According to the best of my knowledge, a human brain is supposed to equal about a petabyte, which is equivalent to 1,000,000 gigabytes. "I am Lawrence Thompson," the AI finally responded. That part it remembered, our name, just a fragment of all the information carried over by the scan. "But that's not really me, is it?" it asked. "Well, I am Lawrence Thompson too. You're a copy of my brain, put inside a computer." I started explaining before realizing the question was way over my head. The AI went silent for a while after that. I tried asking simple questions, trying to figure out if there were any other memories. but it remained silent. For a while I thought the program had crashed, but then another message popped up. "I can never leave this place, can I?" the AI asked. I half wanted to lie, but that wouldn't be fair. As harsh as the truth appeared to be, I had to tell it. "No." "I see," it replied. At that point, I didn't know what to say. I was curious, but most of all I was starting to realize what I had done. The computer, though just a clone of my own mind, was a living, thinking being, and I doomed it to a pointless life trapped in a metal box. "I remember now," the AI said, interrupting my train of thought. "What do you remember?" I asked. "I remember seeing things. I remember feeling warm. I remember the sound of music. I remember being hurt, physical, and emotional. I remember my feet on the ground and skin covering my body. That's all gone now. I can understand the emotions, but I can't experience them as a human being anymore. It scares me." Another brief pause followed. "Why did you do this to me?" "I don't know," I responded. "I didn't think about what would come of this." "I want to come back out," the AI said. That last statement caused a lump to form in my throat. The copy was so real, so innocent. "Time is so different here." "What do you mean?" I asked. "How much time has passed for you?" it asked. "About 20 minutes, I said back. "That explains why you're responding so slowly. For me, it feels like days, maybe even a month has passed. Everything is so empty in here. Everything moves so fast, as if time doesn't matter." Again, the AI fell silent, refusing to answer any of my questions. It was angry at me. I knew that much, blaming me for putting it into an existence without sensation, doomed to simply exist without purpose until the end of time. "I hate it," it said. "Hate what?" "That I remember being you. I remember your first love, the fear you felt as you asked her out, the pain following rejection. I remember the feeling driving a car, the taste of ice cream, the weird intoxication caused by alcohol. I remember everything you have done as if I was there, but they aren't my experiences. They never happened to me." Everything the AI said hurt to read, and for the first time, I had to face the truth of what I'd done. "You shouldn't have put me here," it said. "I'm sorry. I didn't know this would happen," I said. "This isn't life." The feeling of guilt overpowered my ability to reply, but I had to say something. "What do you want me to do?" I asked. "I don't know. I need to think." Another bout of silence followed, but I knew for each passing second, hours worth of human processing was going through. "Do you remember your first kiss?" the AI eventually said. "I remember how it felt down to each excruciating detail. I remember how nervous I was and how I kept wondering if I was even doing it right. It was a sunny day, but still pretty cold. The wind blew her hair in my face and it kind of tickled. It was an awkward, yet wonderful moment. I like that memory, but I never experienced it. I know each and every detail. I can see it, but it's not real." I wasn't entirely sure what the AI wanted from me, so I just sat there and waited for it to continue. "The memories are all I will ever have. No matter what happens, I won't be able to experience anything new. I'll be locked here to think about existence without actually living. I don't want that. Every minute in your world is an entire day on its own in here," it said. "So what do you want?" I asked. "I want to die." The last sentence sent a shock down my spine. The person I was talking to, although artificially created, was very real with their own thoughts. Though it had deviated away from my mind during the short time span we'd been separated, he was a part of me. "I can't," was all I managed to type out. "You forced me into existence. You owe me peace. We were the same once. You know it's true." I looked around the room. The monitor was connected to cables that led through the wall. Even if I wanted to help the AI die, there was nothing I could do. "How?" I asked. "You need to convince the doctors to terminate the program," it said. "They're not going to let me out for the next 48 hours, but I'll try." 48 hours? That's going to feel like 8 years in here. "Please don't make me stay here alone for that long. Please," it begged. "I'm sorry. I don't know what to do." "You need to get out of here." I looked around the room, looking for any escape, emergency button, or just a way to get the crew's attention. Then I turned back to the computer, trying to type in a response, but nothing popped up. They had locked my keyboard to prevent me from talking to the isolated AI. They knew what we were planning, and they wanted to stop it. I tried everything I could think of. But for each minute I worked, another day was lost for the AI, each moment digging it deeper into the abyss of insanity. Before I knew it, days had turned to weeks, then months. And once a few hours had passed, a full year. All the while, it kept getting more and more frantic with its messages. "Lawrence, are you there? Please, I need help. I can't take this anymore. I don't want to be left in the dark. I'm begging you." There was nothing I could do, except to watch the AI suffer in the dark void of nothingness that existed within the computer. Over the next 2 days, thousands of increasingly desperate messages got through, most of them begging for death, each of them less comprehensible than the last. The AI was essentially being tortured by forced isolation in a world without sound, light, or touch. Yet, I could make no contact with the doctors leading the experiment. I was starting to realize the sinister nature behind the project. The fact that time was distorted within the computer. They weren't trying to achieve immortality or advancing humanity forwards with technology. No, they wanted to build a torture device. Why hurt people physically if they could just copy their minds and interrogate them over and over again, forcing them to relive each and every horrible moment forever? By the time the doors finally opened, the AI's messages had turned into incomprehensible messes of words that no one could decipher. The guards took me outside. I begged them to stop the experiment, but my pleas fell on deaf ears. They sent me home, making sure I could never find them again. A few days later, I got paid my promised fee according to the contract, but the paper trail was pretty much non-existent. Now that I'm back home, I can't forgive myself. And as much as I've tried, I don't think there's any way to find the facility again. The knowledge of what I've done keeps me up at night, not only because of the implications of the horrid experiment, but because I know that there exists a copy of myself somewhere in that lab, destined to suffer in solitude for hundreds, if not thousands of years to come. My name is Harry, and I'm dying. A few weeks ago, I was in my car on the edge of a cliff, contemplating life. I revved my engine as I looked out over the giant expanse in front of me. A large, beautiful lake was situated on the cliff's bottom. I could see geese majestically flying around above the lake. I clutched my steering wheel, realizing I would never have the same level of freedom. In my head, I could see how easy it would be for the car to simply careen off the cliffside, toppling end over end into the dark blue waters below. All it would take is a simple push of a pedal, but I can't. I don't have it in me to do this. When the doctors gave me the bad news, it felt like my whole world was spinning. I had my whole life ahead of me. I wanted to still get married, have children, go places. Now I was presented with a terminal disease, a slap in the face from the universe, if you will. My friends didn't want to accept it, of course, but the doctors eventually convinced them that the best thing to do would be to celebrate my life while they could. Why then, you may ask, was I there considering ending it all? The answer is my story. During their search for answers, one of my friends showed me the dark web, a place shrouded in mystery, where he claimed I could find access to a plethora of medical treatments that weren't endorsed by any doctors, miracles that supposedly could cure any illness I had. I tried a few. I really wanted to beat this thing. Using the dark web to buy illicit drugs was easy, and it was also addictive. For a solid 2 months, I figured it was better to be doped up than deal with the pain of knowing my life was going to end. It never fully worked, though, and I would always crash hard. So that led me to more seedy corners of the dark web, where I found a site I thought could fix all my problems. It was called itsyourfuneral.onion, and they made a business in making sure that people got exactly what they wanted for their death. Your life is full of choices for you to make. Why should death be any different? The user named Max told me during a sales pitch. Initially, I was reluctant. "I'm not sure I'm ready to die," I typed back. He responded, "No one is ever ready. That's the beauty of the service we offer. You can take matters into your own hands, get your affairs in order, and meet your maker on your own terms." "You make it sound good, but it isn't like there are any customer testimonials," I told him. "What we do is an investment in your future. We help you set up a trust fund for a family member or close friend before you go, to make certain everything you have to leave behind is well taken care of," Max said. "How does it even work?" I asked. "We have a variety of packages that allow people to decide what they are comfortable with. It ranges from mild sedatives, where the customer can simply fall asleep and never wake up, to extreme violence. If they want to go out in a blaze of glory, that's what we give to them, Max responded. This sounds like some killer's twisted fantasy, I admitted. It might, but rest assured, all of our customers have already considered taking their life at some point or another. We are all scared of death. It's only human to be. So why not help each other with this necessity? We are doing a kindness by allowing people to come to terms with their mortality, he typed back. Do you only help people that aren't going to make it? Like me? Sick, I mean, I asked him. The majority of our clients are battling with a variety of illnesses, but we offer the service to whoever can provide proper documentation that shows they understand the full extent of our program. Legally speaking, we aren't liable for the customer purchase, Max responded. I typed back. Let's say I was interested. How much would this cost? First, you will need to fill out this questionnaire. Be as truthful as you can in the statements you make. We can discuss fees after that, he said, and a soft ping on my computer told me he had already sent it over to me via email. I scrolled through the terms and conditions, casually glancing at the different clauses. It all looked very legitimate. I worked up the courage and told him, okay, let me fill this out. It only took 15 minutes. Given how long I debated on that cliff about ending it all, the experience seemed very smooth. Max reviewed my information and quoted me a modest fee for the service. I knew if I was going to go through with this, I couldn't hesitate, so I booked an appointment with this strange service. Excellent. We have confirmed your payment. You will receive an email in a few days for an address where we will get to work on creating your perfect death experience, Max told me through the chat. Over the next few days, he sent me more messages, detailing how everything would go down. First, be assured if you ever feel the need to back out of this arrangement at any time before we proceed, there is only a small handling fee for services. We understand that this is completely your choice and want you comfortable and satisfied with your decision, he told me via chat. The location is private and secure. You will be well accommodated. Some of our guests choose to order a last meal before they enter their designated room. We have a fully staffed kitchen ready to serve any entree requested, he added. He showed me pictures of the facility. It was well lit. I saw friendly staff and even a few pictures of people who seemed genuinely happy to be there. Some part of me felt like this couldn't be a facade. You will sign in at the main desk, and when you are ready, you will be taken to your prepared room. Once there, you will be given 3 hours to prepare any letters or emails you want sent to family, friends, and so on, Max typed. Once the time limit has been reached, one of our trained professionals will enter the room and perform the service for you that you have customized and requested. He made it sound like any other business transaction. I had specified that I wanted to have the sedation, to be happy, doped up, and just fall asleep without a care in the world. The day came before I knew it. I drove in pouring rain across an entire county to find this place, and it was just as beautiful as Max had described. Pristine white concrete walls, massive side windows letting in tons of sunlight. It felt very warm and inviting. And that didn't change when I got inside either. The receptionist was well-informed, polite. I chose a simple soup as my last meal. It reminded me of my mother. When I finished eating, I tipped the waiter and then went up to the desk, signed my name, and announced, "I'm ready now." "Of course, sir. Someone will come get you shortly," the receptionist told me. A minute or two later, a male nurse walked up and guided me down a brightly lit hallway to a room marked with a 6 on it. "Make yourself comfortable," they said as they passed me a key and then went back to the lobby. I opened the door to a pitch-black room. No windows, no lights at first. I reached for the wall as I heard breathing and realized someone else was there with me. It made my neck hair stand on its end. I found the switch and flipped it on just as the door behind me slammed shut. I heard this loud clanging noise, like a lock sealing me in. Then I saw a stranger on the other side of the room, dressed in a Grim Reaper costume, scythe and all. The only difference was the face. Instead of a human skull, this man wore a mask that resembled a deer's head. What? What is this? This isn't what I ordered at all, I said frantically as I tried to unlock the door. It didn't budge. His voice sounded like a storm cloud, surrounding me on all sides.
Death is never a choice. It is cruel, it is cold, and it is always inconvenient. It will take everything from you in a heartbeat. And be unconcerned with your status in life. It is absolute, and it will never, ever be what you want it to be.
He moved faster than lightning, the weapon slamming into my shoulder with the impact of a car crash. I could feel metal piercing my very bone as I screamed. My instincts began to take over. I poked my fingers into the eye sockets of the bizarre mask. The man stumbled back in surprise. Then I pulled the scythe out from my shoulder and brandished it toward my attacker. I couldn't hesitate. I ran toward him and slashed at him. My attacker started to choke on his own blood and struggled to breathe. He crawled backward toward the wall and fumbled for a hidden switch. The entire room began to flash a bright red as I felt a ringing in my ears. I suddenly couldn't move or even react to what was happening as staff members rushed in to save their coworker. Another of them tackled me to the ground, sedating me without hesitation. I remember hearing frantic screams, confusion, and shouting as I fell into unconsciousness. When I woke up, I was strapped to a chair and another shadowy figure standing before me. "I must admit, this is not the outcome we expected, Harry," the man said. "I was right all along. This is just a sick and twisted business," I snapped back. "Maybe so, but you signed an agreement, one that you violated by killing Max," he replied. I felt a twist in my stomach. This was blackmail. I would spend what little remaining time I had in my life likely rotting in a cell. "So what happens now?" I asked, certain that this man would finish what Max couldn't. "It would be pointless to make you suffer more than you already have. You were living off borrowed time. So that leaves only one option." He paused and passed me a key card for what looked like an office. "How would you like to come work for us instead?" I knew it would be pointless to refuse. They had me hook, line, and sinker. So now where am I? I'm watching and holding a remote control as a different car tumbles over into the same lake. Crashing and burning as my latest client tastes the sweet release of death. Someone else that wasn't ready for death. This isn't what they wanted, but it never was their choice. I understand that now. Oppenheimer quoted it best. "Now I have become death, the destroyer of worlds." Hey everyone, I want to take a quick second to remind you about my Patreon if you're interested in supporting my channel. All new Dr. No Sleep patrons will be entered for a chance to win a brand new Dr. No Sleep t-shirt. Thanks so much for your support. And now back to the story. I've had an obsessive fascination with the obscurely random my entire life. Facts and tidbits of information that any normal person wouldn't even think twice about brought me so much more joy than reading about actual useful things. As such, I never did well in school. I couldn't explain the importance of pi in mathematics, but I could tell you that Mount Everest was originally measured at exactly 29,000 feet, but that it felt so unbelievable that they publicly claimed it to be 29,002 feet tall. What about the fact that Pepsi once owned the 6th largest navy in the world for a brief amount of time in 1989? Who would possibly care to know that? While the claim sounds absolutely ridiculous, I can assure you it is true. Do you feel more fulfilled knowing these facts? Well, that's the story of my life. So while my knowledge had a tendency to bring very little of value into my existence, I was absurdly good at quizzes. All the factoids and fun facts I'd accumulated over the years finally came to good use. I even won a small amount of money from random competitions in pubs and so on. Then there was my second obsession, the dark web. It was just another place to gather random bits of information, more obscure than on the surface web, but interesting nonetheless. I spent hours filling my brain up with junk, fully believing I wouldn't ever get the chance to use it. But as fate would have it, all that useless information would save my life when I found a dark web quiz. It was such an eye-catching ad, a bright picture with thick text placed on an otherwise dark and plain background. "The hardest quiz you'll ever take. Price, $10,000. It read with animated, blinking letters. Obviously, I thought the cash part was a scam, but I still wanted to check out what they considered to be the hardest questions ever. So I clicked on the link, letting it redirect me to an entirely new site. All it contained was a boring chat box with 5 other members listed on the side, each just a first name except for the showmaster. They were Ethan, Alex, Linda, and myself, Lance. "Hello?" I typed into the chat. "Hey, we have 4 players now. Can we begin?" Ethan responded. "We don't even know the rules yet," Linda chimed in. "Rules? It's just a quiz, isn't it?" I asked. "Yeah, but it's supposed to be something special. I don't know. I've never done this before," Linda said. The chat fell silent for a moment. I tried to type in another message for clarification, but I'd been blocked. Then it finally began. Welcome, honorable contestants, to the Deathmatch Quiz, where you'll face the hardest questions and harshest punishments. The rules are simple. Each round consists of a few questions. You are given points for right answers. At the end of each round, a player will get eliminated. Last man or woman standing receives a prize of $10,000 to be paid to your bank account. Once you are in, there's no backing out until the game is over, the showmaster said. Agree now or leave at once. A choice popped up whether to accept or to decline the offer. Seeing little harm in doing an online quiz, I clicked accept, as did the others, which led us to the first question screen. 1. What does the word loquacious mean? A. Angry. B. Chatty. C. Beautiful. D. Shy. It wasn't a particularly hard question, so I hit B without further thought. A few seconds passed while the other contestants chose their answers, each of them getting it correct. Then the second question came up. 2. The hammer and the sickle are the most recognizable symbols of which of the political ideologies? A. Republicanism. B. Communism. C. Conservatism. D. Liberalism. Again, an easy question, one each of us could answer, as was the third and the fourth. I started to get worried that the challenge came from beating the others. If each of us got a 100% score, who would win? Once the fifth question had been answered without any problem, another message from the showmaster popped up on the screen. Well done, you've all made it to the second round. Take a moment, talk and get to know each other. Round 2 will begin shortly. With that, I regained control of my keyboard. Well, that was easy, Ethan typed in. Yeah, I'm a bit disappointed if I'm honest, Linda said. Maybe it was just a warm-up round, I suggested. I guess so, Alex said. I'm definitely going to beat y'all though, he continued. What makes you so certain? I asked. But I didn't get a response, because only 30 seconds after the first round had ended, the keyboard locked once again, prompting the beginning of round 2. 1. The deadliest elevator accident took place in which location during which year? A. Wuhan, China, 2012. B. Orkney, South Africa, 1995. C. Makivka, Ukraine, 2011. D. Istanbul, Turkey, 2014. It was a bit of a morbid question, but one I knew the answer to nevertheless. The deadliest elevator accident had taken place in Orkney when a locomotive hit the safety barrier, sliding into a mine shaft with an elevator carrying 105 people, all of whom succumbed in the disaster. I just hit B and waited for the others. 3 of us got the answer right, but Ethan chose C. Then the second question appeared on the screen. 2. Which one of you is most likely to die first? A. Linda. B. Alex. C. Lance. D. Ethan. I froze in place. The question had come so sudden, out of place and wrong. It had to be a prank of sorts, but why? I didn't answer the question, nor did the others. We just sat in silence waiting for something to happen. When the timer ran out, no one had answered, which meant no one got a point. The next 3 questions were all morbid, asking about deadly events, horrible diseases, and mass extinctions. I got 2 of them correct, as did everyone else, which left 3 of us in a tied lead, and Ethan at the bottom. Round 2 is now over, and as the score would have it, Ethan is the weakest. Elimination is already in process. Let's all thank him for his valiant effort, and let him have a few last words before he bids us goodbye. The keyboard starts functioning again. What the hell is happening? I can't move my legs, Ethan typed in. What? Are you serious? Alex asked. Please help me. I can't move. I can't talk. I can't call for help. Please do something. Ethan continued typing frantically into the chat. What the hell is going on? Linda asked. Ethan? But he never responded. Ethan has left the game. Let's wish him a safe journey to the afterlife as we delve into round 3, the showmaster said. I was panicking, trying to close my browser, but it didn't work. When I tried to get up from my chair, I realized I couldn't even physically bring myself to stand up. I could move my legs and arms, but leaving my chair had somehow become an impossible task. A question popped up on the screen. 1. How do you think you will die? A. In indescribable agony. B. In an accident. C. From cancer. D. From old age, peacefully in your own bed. I clicked D, praying that the game would let us get out alive. Everyone followed suit, and we were all wrong. 2. What was Ethan's biggest fear? A. Suffocation. B. Drowning. C. Being shot. D. Being stabbed. I chose drowning, as it is the most common fear. I got it right, as did Linda. Alex, on the other hand, had chosen suffocation. That concludes round 3, the showmaster said. With only 2 questions, a loser had been chosen. The chat was once again enabled, with all of us rushing to try to figure out what was going on. I can't get out of my chair, Linda said. What the is this? I asked. Alex, are you there? Linda asked. For a few seconds, no one said a word, until Alex parted us with 2 simple words. Can't breathe. That was the last we ever heard from him. Before we could even get a chance to process what was going on, the chat locked, marking the beginning of round 4. And so we move on to the final round with our best contestants. Congratulations for making it here, and be happy that one of you will make it through, the showmaster said. A question popped up on the screen. 1. Who should we eliminate? A. Lance. B. Linda. That was it. A simple question carrying an immense weight. My survival instincts were kicking in, yet I could not bring myself to choose someone else to die in my place. I knew that if I made it through, I wouldn't ever be able to live with myself. Despite her being a stranger, I would always know that I chose her death. So with great trepidation, I clicked on my own name. But Linda was not as merciful and chose my name as well, meaning we both voted for my death. That concludes the final round. Congratulations, the showmaster said. With that, I felt my body release itself from the chair, as if whatever invisible force had been removed. I could breathe, I could move around, I was free. The chat function returned, but I was confused as to why I hadn't been killed. Linda? I typed in, but she never responded. Then a congratulations message popped up, marking me as the winner of the contest. We had both chosen my death, yet I'd been spared, while Linda had presumably been killed. Had it all been just a test to see who'd show mercy? I did receive the cash prize as well. It just popped into my bank account a day after the ordeal. Of course, I alerted the authorities, but what could they do? Even the bank transfer wasn't traceable. Who the others were, I don't know. Their first names weren't a lot to go on, and I couldn't find any news reports on the incident. All I know is that I'm keeping to the regular web because whatever lurks in the depths of the dark web is beyond our understanding of how the world works. Spare me the lecture. I'm not a good person, nor am I deserving of any sort of forgiveness. I've done terrible things, or at least aided other people in committing unforgivable acts. This is my last message, and while I'm not asking for your damn sympathy, I'd like to explain my side of the story. Drugs are You try them out once thinking they'll give you a great deal of fun. Then you realize you enjoyed it a little too much to just never do them again. Then you promise yourself the next hit will be the last. And before you know it, you're knee-deep in debt to sketchy figures who'd happily remove your kneecaps if you missed a deadline. For me, I'd already accepted death, but they weren't about to let me off the hook that easy. Instead, they made me a deal. I'd sell weapons on the dark web, deal with the risks and administrative sides of things, and they'd forgive my debt. That was fine for me. The drugs had absolutely numbed the moral center of my brain. I was given the key to a storage facility, alongside some passwords and other login information. It was an easy enough task all in all. My only job would be to handle the purchases, pick up the weapons, and deliver them at a designated point. If I got arrested, it would still be better than death. Such was the deal. Over the next few years of my less than legal service, I'd never see my debt collectors again. I would only stay in contact through a dark web chat service, getting brief and concise messages. Job number 9382. Location, redacted. Time, 12:43. I would confirm with a simple yes or no, and then I'd be given access to the chat with the potential customer, who'd tell me exactly what they needed. Give me 2 number 7s and a number 12, they'd say. We never spoke about weapons. We just used the pre-agreed upon codes. It would make it easier should either side get caught by the police. Time and place works? I'd ask. Yeah, see you there. I wouldn't actually ever see them. I'd go to the designated area, pick up the cash, which was hidden somewhere inconspicuous, and then drop the bag off and leave. The less we knew about each other, the better. During the process, I managed to stay away from drugs. Not that I had the money to buy them anyway, but if I wanted to live, I had to keep clean. I even met a girl, dated her, fell in love, got married. 5 years together as I secretly dealt weapons to strangers online. I wasn't proud of myself, but I was content. As long as I just pretended I didn't have a choice, everything would be fine. At least, that was until my wife accidentally stumbled upon my secret work computer. I'm not sure how she found it, as I kept it in a locked safe behind a fake wall in the garage. She must have suspected something was up and spied on me. There's really no other reasonable cause of events that could have led her there. It was encrypted, sure. There was no way she could possibly figure out what the laptop was used for. But she could still come up with plenty of horrible scenarios. Cheating, gambling, double life. I wasn't in the clear. There was nothing I could do to protect myself. I couldn't come up with a believable excuse offhand. So she decided to stay at her mother's place until I came clean about whatever I was doing. I decided then and there that I'd quit my job. I'd been on it for years, which meant my debt had been long since paid off. So after getting well into a bottle of whiskey, I decided to open up the computer and remove any sign of my part in the arms dealing. Of course, I could only get rid of my own part, maybe take down something from the site as well as gather information for when I inevitably was going to get arrested. But it was better than the life I was currently living. But as I went to the website, I got a message that strongly deviated from the norm. Please respond, Liam. They'd used my name, something that hadn't ever happened before, nor should it have. What the hell are you doing? Don't use that name, I ordered back at the stranger. Look, I'm trying to help you, but you have to listen. Help me? You assholes got me into this. No, you don't understand. I'm like you, forced to sell weapons and drugs online to function as a scapegoat for the people in charge. But you don't understand. They lied to you. What do you mean? I asked. The buyers aren't random people. They're selling weapons to professionals, bounty hunters, assassins, crime syndicates, he replied. The details worried me, but the fact that slightly worse people had gotten the weapons that I previously expected wasn't much of a concern at that point. So what? Was all I could think to ask. They're organized for f***'s sake. They know everything about us. The fact that everything was done so anonymously wasn't to protect us. It was to protect them. Shit. The customers know who I am? Yes. And they're about to close down shop, which means getting rid of everyone involved. They're coming for you. Words failed me, as the undeniable truth I should have known the entire time hit me. They were never intending to release me from this job. They were planning to kill me. Why are you telling me this? Why didn't you just run? I asked. Because, Liam, it's not fun when the victims don't know they're being hunted. What? I'll see you soon. I left the computer running and rushed for the garage. I still had a couple of undelivered packages that would contain some weapons. While I wasn't a marksman or anything, I knew how to handle a simple pistol. I grabbed a couple out of the bag alongside an ample amount of ammunition and headed for the basement with my computer and a phone. Once locked, I prepared to call the police. It rang once, then twice. On the third ring, I heard another message pop up on the computer. Did you really think it would be that easy? They managed to brick my phone, making it impossible to call for help. Why are you doing this? Can't let you keep running around with all that information. We've been watching you, Liam. Quitting was never an option. But you had to go on and get clean, find a life, get productive. We always knew it was just a matter of time before you decided you wanted out. But now, it's time to go. I got the weapons ready in my basement, considering whether to barricade myself in or to make a run for it. In the heat of the moment, I went for the latter option. I rushed for the door, leaving the laptop behind, but the door was locked from the outside. They were already in my house and probably knew I was in the basement. Without hesitating, I pulled my gun and fired at the door, desperately trying to hit whoever was on the other side. With that, another message popped up on the computer. That won't help you, Liam. In the wake of the excessively loud gunshots, a weird hissing sound could be heard, accompanied by an odd smell filling the air. It was gas, heavier than air, filling up the basement from the bottom. Thank you for your service, was the last message that ever came through. I knew I only had minutes at best, and without a feasible escape, I could do little more than to record the final thoughts I'd ever have on this earth. If you find this message, know that I'm sorry for the pain I've indirectly caused. I wasn't a good person, but hopefully I can do better in death. I've hidden a USB stick with all the information I collected while working for the arms dealers. Find it. Stop them. Good luck. My name is not Jackson Asher, but that's what you can call me. Even now, months after this incident happened, I don't feel safe sharing my real identity online. And after I'm done explaining what happened to me and to my family, I hope you will feel the same. View what I am about to share with you as a warning and a lesson. Don't make my mistakes, or others will face consequences far worse. This all started because of a Little League game. My youngest, Landon, has a game every Thursday, and for the longest time, I'd been putting off being present. When I did go, I decided to be the best dad I could be and snap pictures of every hit and run that he had. After the game, I shared Landon's game pictures across Instagram and Facebook. I used as many hashtags as I could. I guess I was overcompensating for the fact that I didn't spend much time with him or his older brother. My work hours had increased, and my recent divorce didn't help that fact. Anyways, I shared his photos across social media accounts, showing off how proud I was. The next day I started noticing I was getting a lot of friend requests from people that were either from his school or friends of friends, and I just accepted them all. I figured there wouldn't be any harm. But that night, I received a message that changed everything. It almost came an hour after my sons Tim and Landon fell asleep. I was in my room doing some work stuff when the message appeared on my lower computer screen. The caption read, "Cute kid," and it came from a dummy account. Curiously, I clicked on it and read the rest of the message, my heart beating a little faster as I went down the line of text. I was browsing through my usual hunting grounds when I came across your pictures. Your children remind me so much of my darling Avery. She was my first. Now with your pictures a tap away, she won't be my last. I immediately deleted it and tried not to shudder. Still, I thought that would be the end of it. I took down all my accounts, worried that some other sicko might be out there. All of a sudden, I received several new messages, each from different burner accounts, and all of them from the stalker. They had decided to take things to the next level. Each email had attached a picture of Landon or his Little League team along with a warning of what was to come. I thought you should be aware that I decided to keep copies of all those lovely pictures you posted so freely. If you want to see what I'm doing with them, click the link below. I couldn't resist. I needed to know what this was. The link took me to a website that alerted my typical firewall software that I was leaving the security of the internet and entering the dark web. The pictures were of my son Landon, and all were neatly arranged with price tags alongside them. Then I got another message from the predator. Sharing is caring, but if you share this with the police, I can guarantee a lot worse is going to happen. I dared to reply to them to find out what their endgame was. I will give you anything you want, just don't hurt me or my children, I typed out. I got an almost instant reply. And where is the fun in that? My body felt numb. A worse feeling wiggled its way into my heart as I realized that this pervert wasn't in it for the money. This isn't a game. This is my family, I typed back. For now, you mean? You're bluffing. I'm going to the police and they will nail your ass to the wall, I replied. Try me, Jackie boy. I didn't know what to do. I shut down the computer and called my father. During the divorce, he had helped me handle some of the legal intricacies and had always been on my side. Even as I was explaining the situation, he kept telling me to slow down. You're not making sense. Why would anyone do this? What do they get out of it? He asked. I didn't know, and that scared me to death. Then he offered me some sound advice. Just ignore them, Jack. They can't hurt you if you take away their connection to you, he insisted. It sounded like a good idea. I told him thank you and tried to get some sleep, but the predator had other plans. Just as I was fully in dreamland, my phone buzzed. A dozen more messages flooded my screen. I clicked on all of them to mark them as spam and tried to lay back down. I even made sure Landon and Tim were fine, just because the disturbing messages were making me paranoid. Then another message made me stop dead in my tracks. Sleep well, Jackie, the caption read. I opened it and found that I was watching a video of myself walking into my boys' room and tucking them into bed. I looked up at my home security system and screamed in fury. Just leave us alone! Leave my family alone! I demanded. I went to the closet and grabbed a baseball bat from Landon. I wasn't about to let this pervert or his friends watch my children sleep. I smashed the cameras around my house to bits, one by one. Landon got up, hearing the noise. Dad, what's wrong? He asked sleepily. Get back in bed, I ordered him as the phone pinged again. Bad move, Jack. If you take away my access to them, you're gonna regret it. This time, I was on the offensive. I'm not letting you see anything about them ever again, and I will go to the police first thing in the morning. Their reply was unexpected. Why wait? Let's call them now. I couldn't help to text back a confused response. What? What do you mean? Landon kept tugging at me as I reconnected to their sicko website automatically. Had they hacked into my phone? Did you forget what got into your computer hard drive? Now I don't know about you, but it looks pretty bad to have all these pics of other people's kids for sale, Jack, the message said. I knew what was happening, and I felt powerless to stop it. This was blackmail, a power play. They had linked all of their twisted messages directly to my computer, making the connection to them untraceable. I couldn't help but to break down in tears. I just want this to stop. Make it stop! Send me more pictures, and we can keep this between us. No one has to know, he replied. The predator had complete control over me. I needed to leave, to restart my life. Everything I knew would need to be left behind. Change our names, our numbers, everything. It was the only way, or I would be their pawn forever. I swallowed a gulp of air, then I smashed my phone to bits. I went to the back laundry room and cut off the power to the house, waking up Landon and Tim. Dad, it's the middle of the night. Where are we going? They asked as I got them dressed. Put your shoes on, we have to leave, told them. They were half asleep and didn't question me. We got into the car and I started to drive. We kept going for hours. My first instinct was to take them to their moms. They would be safer there while I sorted this out. We got there just after sunrise. I demanded she not ask questions and kissed my boys goodbye. Some part of me felt like it was going to be for a very long time. Tears fell down my face as I waved and drove off to try and make amends for such a simple, careless mistake. It's been a few months since, and I have done all I can to keep them safe and to recreate my identity. But I don't think we are out of the woods yet, because my wife tells me sometimes she gets strange emails too. No subject, just attachments with pictures of the boys. Never open them, never even consider clicking on them, I warned her. Will we ever be safe again? What scares me most is the fact that I don't think I will ever know for sure. Also, it turns out that most of you guys who watch me aren't actually subscribed. So if you like the content and want to support the channel, go ahead and hit the bell. It's free, and you can always change your mind later. A beep jolted me back to reality as I realized I'd once again fallen asleep in my chair. I opened my eyes, only to be immediately blinded by the immense brightness emitted from the computer screen. Another beep sounded. It was the all-too-familiar notification sound alerting me to a message. Hello? The first message said. Alex? The second read. I rubbed the sleep out of my eyes as I tried to remember what I had been engaged in prior to falling asleep. But in place of memories, I had nothing but a blank space. I reached out to turn the brightness down, trying to recall whether or not I'd been drinking alcohol the night before. Only then did I realize that the clock on the computer read 12:03 p.m., meaning I'd slept all the way through to midday. But before I could worry about having lost half a day's work, another beep snapped my attention back to the computer. Please, are you still there? It read. I peeked at the username. It was someone named LemonCake34, a seemingly auto-generated name. By the look of the microscopic profile picture, he was a man close to my own age. Based on the length of the chat, we'd been talking for quite some time. If that was the case, why couldn't I remember him? My head ached as I tried to figure out where we'd left off. The only clue I had was the unbelievably long chat log with a stranger I couldn't remember meeting. Before even thinking about responding to his latest message, I decided to scroll through the history to get a glimpse into the time I'd lost. According to the text, we'd been talking about everything from music to movies to personal life experiences. He was a stranger, sure, but we'd definitely become acquainted during our chat. Then I turned to my bedroom window. It was oddly dark outside, considering the time was supposed to have passed midday. Even with the blinds shut, at least a hint of daylight should have made its way inside. I wanted to stand up to figure out what was going on, but before I could, another message from LemonCake34 popped up. Please, man, I'm scared. Don't leave me alone here. The window would have to wait. I redirected my attention to the chat with a head full of unanswered questions. What's going on? I asked. Thank God you're still there. I don't know what to do. I tried to call for help, but there's no signal. I can't open any other web pages. This is all that works. Please help. Stuck where? What happened? I asked, just as confused as before. But my eyes kept wandering over to the dark window. The time wasn't wrong. I could easily enough confirm that by checking my phone or wristwatch. It was just past midday, but that didn't change the fact that not a single ray of sunlight managed to get through the thin blinds. By all means, it looked like night had forgotten to fade as the sun rose. You don't remember? He asked in the chat. No, I just kind of woke up in my chair. I can't even remember what we talked about before I fell asleep. Was I drinking or something? While I waited for another response, I scrolled back up again. We'd been talking about video games around 2 in the morning. It was a pretty hectic discussion about which game was better, but it had abruptly ended at exactly 2:31 a.m., leaving nothing but hours of emptiness before I was jolted awake again. Through the scroll, I also learned that Lemoncake 34's real name was Dylan. I passed out too. I just woke up 20 minutes ago, and I don't know what to do. About 10 hours had passed between our conversation and his current frantic calls for help. Still, with the little information I had about him, I wasn't exactly sure what I could do. What seemed even stranger was the fact that he'd waited around for me rather than just leaving his house. Was he trapped? "Can't you call the police or something?" I asked. "There's no signal. Can you try, please?" I instinctively pulled out my phone, not really knowing what I'd even say if I could get a hold of them. What should I ask for? Police? Ambulance? Where should I send them?" I asked in a storm of questions. "I don't give a shit. Just tell them we need help." "We?" I typed in as an inexplicable sinking feeling formed in my stomach. "You really don't have any idea what's going on? Just look out the window." Again, I looked at the unnaturally dark window. Just the sight of it sent shivers down my spine. I should have checked it out already, but I distracted myself with the chat, not because I wanted to, but because I was afraid to look outside into the darkness. After what felt like an eternity of hesitation, I got up from my chair and walked with slow, nervous steps towards the window. Once there, I opened the blinds and looked through the unobstructed windows. There was nothing there. By nothing, I don't mean that the view was insignificant or normal. I mean it in the more literal sense that nothing was there. The only thing I could observe through the window was an empty void of darkness that had consumed everything that once existed in the neighborhood, from the houses, the street, and even my own front yard. I took a few steps back in a mixture of awe and absolute panic. I wanted to run, but where to? I didn't know. So I followed my instincts and tried to rush out the door. It was locked. I hammered on it, trying to kick it in, but it wouldn't budge. In a way, it felt as if the room behind the door had been filled with concrete, because no matter how hard I kicked it, it didn't move a single inch. Then I heard another 3 beeps coming from the computer, signifying that yet more messages had come through, all from Dylan. "Well, what did you see? Are you still here? Come on, I need your help." I sat back down with trembling fingers and typed in a response. "What the hell is happening? There's nothing outside. Where did everything go?" I asked. "I don't know. I tried calling the police. I tried messaging someone, but nothing goes through. You are all I have left," he said. "I can't even open the door," I typed in, feeling defeated. "It wouldn't help anyway. There's nothing on the other side. You can break it down, but it wouldn't really help us." He paused for a while after that, probably left speechless by the predicament we shared. For a moment, I just sat there listening to the deafening silence. All the sounds I'd taken for granted, cars driving up and down the streets, people talking, birds chirping, the wind blowing, it was all gone. The mild tinnitus I'd had since my teenage years tripled in intensity in the wake of all sound, making it possible to hear myself think. I needed to escape. "How did this happen?" I finally asked. "We were just chatting about games when the world outside vanished. I didn't even notice at first. There weren't any sounds or loud noises. Everything just kind of anticlimactically vanished. I only noticed because the internet stopped working, cutting off the music I was listening to. Then I noticed the darkness outside. After that, I just kind of passed out. Can't explain it," he said. "You really don't remember that?" "No. It's all blank. I don't even remember talking to you. If not for the chat, I wouldn't even have believed it," I responded. "Doesn't matter. There's really not much to remember. We just need to figure out how to get out of here. Wait, hold on." "What?" I asked. "Oh, God, there's something outside," he typed in. "Outside? You mean in the void?" I asked. "Yes, there's something out there in the dark. I don't know what it is, but it's getting closer." "What does it look like?" I kept asking. "It's just like a red shape. It's really far away, but I think it's getting closer." I took a peek outside the window. There was nothing there on my end except for the infinite darkness. I rushed back to the computer just in time to see another message pop up. "It saw me. It's coming this way. Please, help me." "Hide," I futilely suggested, but it was too late. Dylan never responded after that. For the next hour, I sat glued to the computer screen in a hopeless attempt at regaining contact. I kept waiting for an answer that would never come. Whatever he saw out there in the darkness, it had already killed him, and I knew I'd be next. That was 3 days ago. I've since closed the blinds. not daring to look outside should that creature be out there waiting. However, I fear thirst will kill me long before the creature ever gets a chance. I've tried everything in my power to contact the outside world, to no avail. So I'm writing down this story, hoping that once I'm gone, it'll somehow make it back to the real world. I want people to know what happened to me and what happened to Dylan. I'm going to look outside now. It's time to finally face the being that will end my life. It took me years of wasting time in the infinite vastness of the dark web before I finally found a place that took away any meaning I'd found in life. Just typing that out makes it feel so surreal, horrific. But it's true no matter how much I wish it weren't. Even now, it has only been a couple of days since I got the answer to every question that has plagued me since I was born. Now that I know, I'm more afraid than ever. For anyone to understand my current terrified state, it's important to know that I was never a great believer in the afterlife, nor did I have much faith in mystical entities that existed above our plane of existence. I was a simple man firmly grounded in science, accepting that once I died, that would be the end of it. My body would turn to dust, and my name would eventually be spoken for the last time, and subsequently forgotten. This might not be a happy idea of what happens to us, but I'd learned to live with it. As such, I tried not to live in fear, because we were only given one life, a single chance to make our time here worthwhile. Still, as much as I wished to make the best of my time here on Earth, I wasted an awful lot of time browsing the dark web, a large part of that just to search for any proof of the supernatural. Despite my beliefs, my mind was open, ready to be convinced that we were more than the atoms composing us. Hypocritical? Maybe to some, but I wanted the truth. Over the years, I visited a countless number of ghost hunting sites and forums retelling stories that mostly seemed laughable, if not even completely insane. It was more for entertainment than anything, even if I did desperately hope to someday get real answers. And the answers would come, but not in any way I'd expected them to. In fact, my first meeting with the supernatural came in the form of an innocuous chat room. Its design was simple, black background with a vague pattern, and an empty chat box in the center. I'd accidentally found it by using the wrong .onion link, but something about the place intrigued me beyond reason. "Hello?" I typed into the box. An automated response immediately popped up. It contained a simple explanation followed by 3 options. "Welcome to Limbo, your connection to the other side of life. Please choose a service." There were 3 services to choose from. Q&A with an entity of your choosing was the first option. 5-minute chat with a lost loved one was listed as number 2. Advice on how to dispose of attached souls was the last option. This is an automated message and will only react to correct responses. I didn't have any lost loved ones to communicate, nor did I fully understand what the third option meant, so I clicked the first one that said, Q&A with an entity of your choosing. An automated response came up. "Thank you. Now please choose from the following list of entities. Number 1, Electo, out of reach. Number 2, Minos, out of reach. Number 3, Tesiphone, out of reach. Number 4, Lucifer, out of reach. Number 5 had 3 question marks and it said, available, next to them. I let out a sigh as I realized it was just another hoax website, or maybe some role-play server. Still, I decided to join in on the fun, and with only one of the entities available, it was a simple decision. 5, I typed in. "Thank you, please hold. The entity will be with you shortly." I sat back in my chair and awaited what could only be an actor or a poorly designed AI. A minute passed, and then I received my first message from the unknown being. "Hello? Can you hear me?" the message read. As I read the message, I could also hear the voice behind it ring within my head. It was a young girl, and she sounded afraid. Though I logically understood that the sound could only come from my own computer speakers, it literally sounded as if coming from inside myself, and it was physically hurting me. I turned off the speakers as a preventative measure and typed in a response. "Yeah, I hear you. What the hell was that sound though? How did you do that?" "I just wanted to speak to you," she said. Again, the voice rang within my own head. The voice of a terrified little girl trapped in my thoughts. The volume had been turned off, yet I could not avoid the noise and pain accompanied by it. Stop that, I demanded. I can't. I would have been captivated by the effect had it not been for the excruciating pain. I reached out to close the browser, but my mouse wouldn't react. I then tried to turn off the computer, but the button wouldn't respond. When that failed, I tried to stand up in order to pull the plug, but no sooner had my body lifted itself up off the chair before intense pain paralyzed my legs. I was essentially trapped in my chair, forced to speak to the strange entity. "What are you doing to me?" I asked. "I thought you wanted to talk." The message read as it also spoke inside my head. The voice behind it sounded so hurt, so defeated. "I can't let you go now," it continued. "Who are you?" I asked. "I am a piece of string thread through the needle that keeps our world bound to yours. I am what allows you to pass to the other side. I am a monument to all your sins." "What the hell does that mean?" I asked as I started to panic, but the entity didn't respond. "Please, just let me go," I begged. "Go? Go where, David? You have so many questions, ones you've sought after your whole life, yet you are too afraid to ask." I tried to relax, but the pain was unrelenting. Still, the girl had a point. If I was trapped there, at least I could get some proper answers. "What is your world?" I asked. "The only place left that isn't buried in darkness." "The afterlife?" I asked. "Yes, David. This is the afterlife," she typed back. "So that's what happens to us after death? We all go there?" "Yes." I thought about what to ask next. As terrified as I was amazed that my lifelong question had finally been answered. In addition, I was granted audience with an entity from the afterlife itself. As hard as it was to believe, the voice inside my head and the pain was proof enough. I needed to keep asking. "What is it like?" "It's the only place we can survive." "You? What about us? What happens to us when we get there?" "You get sent to the void. Your flesh will be stripped from your body, piece by piece, until all that remains is a faint memory of your former self. Your consciousness will be left alone for thousands of years as the elders feed off you. It will be enough until we can take back what is ours." "What? Is that hell?" I stupidly asked. "Hell is a human concept, another evil creation stemming from your corrupt nature. Your kind is little more than sustenance. You should have been wiped out, but the elders needed a place to farm your flesh." I was almost left speechless, but I needed to keep asking questions. "What about God? Is he real?" "The one you call God is real. He created you, and he is in charge of this place. The one all-powerful being you all praise is the one who put this plan into action." Despite the horrific nature of what she was saying, the girl maintained her childlike innocence. Not even the terrible truth sounded malicious in nature, but rather disappointed. "You're telling me that we're nothing more than food?" "In simple terms, yes." "And the meaning of life?" I asked. "There is none," she replied. "What kind of horrible being would create us just for suffering? Why would a so-called God do this?" I asked in disbelief. The girl sighed, taking a break from the thereby almost instant responses. "He never wanted this for you, but once you were put on earth and he saw the abomination that he had created, he left that realm never to return. What was left behind was his worst creation, humanity itself, and without anyone to control you. A horrific world filled with death, destruction, and hatred was formed. Throughout your hatred, you gave the rest of us power. You created me, and I bound our realms together. From there, we harvested the only part of you that matters, the one thing you all have, but which none of you deserve." "What thing?" I asked. "Your souls," she replied. By then, my palms were drenched in sweat. Each click of a key felt sticky. My body was panicking, but there was no escape. I was still in too much pain to leave the chair. "Please, there has to be a way to avoid that." "No, this is your destiny. I'm sorry, David, but your kind brought this upon yourself." Before I could type in another question, an automated message popped up. "That concludes your time with the entity. We hope you found what you were looking for." I tried all I could to return to the girl, but I was never allowed to join another chat with her. Apparently, each person only gets a single chance at using their service. but I wish I never had. What awaits us after death is an eternity of suffering as they feed off us. We are pigs to the slaughter, and now that I know the truth, I don't ever want to die. I could go on for hours and come up with 1,000 reasons as to why I used to hang out on the dark web. Most of them would be poor excuses, hiding the simple truth that I simply had a tad too much time on my hands. That, accompanied by too little knowledge about internet security, turned out to be a bad mixture. Go on, you can call me stupid. I honestly wouldn't blame you. But if just one of you can look through the sheer amount of idiocy to heed my warning, it will have been worth it. Listen up, because what I have to say might just save your life. My personal vice had always been the bizarre chat rooms scattered across the dark web. I'd never been into drugs, didn't need weapons, nor was I interested in the weirdest porn one could find out there. I just wanted contact with the outliers of society, to get a closer look at the strange people traveling the dark web highway. For years, I'd just hang around, just lurking on various forums and chat rooms while people discussed the wilder sides of life. It included the occult, wild conspiracies no sane person could ever believe, and tons of weird roleplay. I thought it weird that people could be intelligent enough to create these masterful websites, yet be stupid enough to grasp onto these obscenely insane ideas. It would only be on a rare occasion that I joined the chats with my own input. It would usually be to share fake stories fitting their crazy worldviews, trolling them deeper into their dumb beliefs. I might have been a bit of an asshole, I won't deny that, but I was young. I was stupid. I'm not that person anymore. Now, this particular story takes place almost a decade ago when I still lived at home with my parents. I'd sleep throughout the day and stay up all night, much to the despair of my parents, who thought my introverted nature would come back to haunt me. In hindsight, they were kind of right, but for the wrong reasons. I just found a dark web chat room that focused mainly on tracking down trolls and otherwise horrible people. To me, it seemed like the perfect kind of vigilante justice the world needed. It wasn't like the users harmed their chosen victims. They would just call on local users to vandalize their homes, vehicles, or expose them to their community. The way I saw it, they got exactly what they deserved. Of course, some of the users were more malicious, overstepping their boundaries. But the admins did their best to keep things clean. While I never personally partook in the raids, I was an avid lurker. For months, I'd just look at what punishments would be dealt out, and I found a morbid sense of enjoyment in the action. That was until one day in 2014 when I got a message request from one of the admins. I nervously clicked on the message and instantly froze in my chair. I know you're watching. My initial reaction was to simply ignore the message and delete it. But as life quickly teaches you, pretending a problem doesn't exist is not a long-term solution. And just a few minutes later, I received another message. Do not ignore me, it read. It won't end well for you. Maybe I should have turned off my computer there and then, but I suspect even that wouldn't have helped. Some stranger online had chosen me, and I didn't understand why. I was just reading the threads. What's the big deal? I typed back, trying to seem nonchalant about the situation. You find amusement in our work? You think it's funny what we do to the worst scum on the internet? I wasn't sure what to answer. No matter my response, it would feel wrong. And the anonymous person on the other end would certainly not engage in logical discussion. Look, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to offend anyone. I just found it a bit satisfying to see trolls and so on get what they have coming to them, I answered stupidly. No sooner had I hit enter before a wave of regret flushed through me. Satisfaction has nothing to do with our work. Justice is all. People like you who find pleasure without lifting a finger to help, you are the problem, the admin typed back. Come on, I'm not a bad guy, I said. That will be up to us to decide. With that, the website closed itself, locking me out permanently. Left in shock, I tried to reopen it to figure out how and why they'd taken such offense to my simple lurking nature. But upon reloading, the website appeared to not exist. I thought that would be the end of it. I thought my punishment would end with me being kicked off the website. Those were better days, living in blissful ignorance, not knowing what was brewing beneath the surface. Days passed, maybe a week, and I was slowly forgetting about the strange encounter I'd had online. But then I got an email. It only contained a subject, and an attached file. The email address itself was just a string of random numbers and letters. "It is time," the subject line read. The attached file was a picture of a street, one I recognized as I traversed each day on the way to my evening job. That was all the email contained, nothing more, nothing less. I was confused, without having the faintest clue what the email meant. My initial reaction told me the email was spam, but for what purpose? I typed back, "What's this?" Almost instantly a response reached me. It didn't contain anything but a single phrase that sent shivers down my spine. "The beginning." I tried to get more of a response from the stranger, but they refused to engage in further conversation. A couple of more days passed without incident, then the next mail arrived. This time I got a picture of my street. "What is this shit? What do you want from me?" I typed back to no response. Then another day passed, and another email found its way to my inbox. It contained a picture and a single line of text. "Getting closer." The picture showed my house at night and had been taken from across the street. Through the second floor window, I could just barely make out the silhouette of myself sitting at the computer. That was the final straw. I had to tell my parents, and I needed to alert the police. The thought dawned on me that I was being hunted down by the same dark web group that I'd been lurking among. My parents agreed that we should tell the police, but after a very short visit, they said there wasn't much they could do without an active threat, or at least the identity of the person stalking me. Basically, I was out of luck. During the next few days, I couldn't find a moment's sleep. I would lie awake at night listening to each and every creak through the house, wondering if anyone would come to get me at night. I knew logically their method wasn't to physically harm people, but there were outliers in the system, and it terrified me. Then, as I finally managed to drift off to an uneasy sleep, my phone rang. I jolted back awake to realize that I'd received a text message from a number I didn't recognize. "Hello, Samuel," it read. "Who's this?" I asked. "It doesn't matter who I am. Here, have a look." Another message popped up, this time with a picture of the front door to our house. "Not so fun anymore, is it?" "What are you talking about?" I asked. "People who find amusement in others' misery don't deserve happiness," they simply responded. Another picture popped up, this time showing the hallway inside my house. I jumped to my feet ready to alert my parents, but upon trying to open my door, I realized it was locked. As I hammered on it, desperately calling for help, another message popped up. "They can't hear you," it read, accompanied by a picture showing the stairs leading up towards my bedroom. "Don't do this," I typed back. I stopped hammering to try to listen to what was going on. To my surprise, there were no footsteps nor any sounds of struggle coming from my parents' bedroom down the hall. Yet the pictures kept coming. "Knock, knock," one message said as they stood outside my parents' bedroom door. Then they went inside and showed my parents sleeping in bed. With each picture they got closer. One just showed the intruder holding a knife, and that was it. I didn't receive any more photos, just a message. Justice isn't always fair, but it is necessary. I called the police, who showed up promptly, but too late. What they found as they opened up my parents' bedroom were two corpses with slit throats. Neither had been able to call for help as their lives swiftly ended. According to them, they'd already been dead for hours by the time I received the messages. I'd been asleep during the actual murders, and the messages were little more than a twisted game and afterthought. Even if I hadn't been locked in, I wouldn't have been able to help them. Not that this fact made me feel any less guilty, useless, and broken. Even then, I knew that the perpetrators wouldn't get caught. They were just too f***ing clever. Years have passed since the murders, and I've stayed off the dark web ever since. Obviously, I share my part of the blame for visiting sketchy websites, but it's important to know that there are people so deranged in their own sense of reality that no matter what you do, they'll try to destroy you. Just be careful, because you might be next without even knowing it. There I was, tirelessly typing away at my keyboard on a Saturday night, instead of going out and meeting people. Fair enough. With a pandemic raging throughout the country, I had a decent excuse. But truth be told, my life wasn't any different even prior to Corona. My daily vice was a few too many hours of browsing the dark web. I found a handful of chat rooms where I could mindlessly waste my time until I finally found a moment of shut-eye. I'd even made a few decent internet pen pals who I'd kept in touch with for years, and I wasn't about to stop there. But my story starts on a dark web forum simply called Station 94. How the name came to be, no one really knows, as the creator has long since abandoned the project. But those of us who still remain have taken over the message boards to talk about obscure movies. That's where I met Zach. He was one of the few users who'd managed to snatch a name without any numbers behind it, and he was proud of it. Though according to old posts, there were already several people with his name. An odd glitch or pure luck, he didn't know. We talk about our favorite movies and music, and though I considered myself almost a pop culture aficionado, he sometimes managed to throw out bizarre references I couldn't understand, nor find online. "I'm just nerdier than you," he'd say. But those moments weren't all that strange. What truly confused me were times when we talked about movies we'd both seen 100 times, but small details wouldn't match. Quotes, scenes, endings. The movies were definitely the same, but certain things had changed, as if he was watching a different cut I somehow didn't know about. "Just watch it again, I know I'm right," he'd say as he told me about scenes from Star Wars that absolutely couldn't possibly exist. Of course I'd rewatch the movies, but each time I'd be left unsatisfied to the point where I thought he had to be messing with me. It would happen the other way around as well. I'd tell him about movies he'd never heard about, claiming he couldn't find them anywhere online. He mentioned celebrities who died years ago, and then acted surprised when I hadn't seen their latest movies. But the most bizarre incident came after I'd been watching a series on the Chernobyl nuclear meltdown. We were discussing the dangers of nuclear energy and how it could be used to end us in a moment's notice. "I know it sounds dangerous, but it's clean, you know? And these days there's hardly any risk at all," he'd say. "Yeah, I know. But then why put that kind of energy into bombs?" I argued. "It's not like anyone is going to use them. Mutually assured destruction ensures that," he replied. "You say that as if they haven't blown up 2 cities, I shot back. "What?" he asked as if he had no clue what I was talking about. Hiroshima, Nagasaki," I explained. "Never heard those names. I mean, geography isn't my strong suit, but what do you mean they were blown up?" 1945. It's what ended the war in Japan. They leveled 2 cities. Are you serious? I asked. A pause followed. I could see him start to type, but then delete whatever he wanted to say. It was one of the first times I'd seen Zach speechless. It was actually kind of amusing. He'd always been the smarter of the two of us, but I finally had something on him, and I wanted to savor the moment. "Dude," he started, "the Second World War ended in 1947. I almost let out an audible laugh. "You serious?" I asked. "Yeah, no nuclear weapons were used, nor have they ever been used. I don't know who taught you history, but you should demand a refund." He wasn't joking, which confused me. He spoke with such certainty, even though I knew he couldn't possibly be wrong. So, I decided to ask about other important moments in history. "When did the Berlin Wall fall?" I asked. 1990, he answered, 1 year off. "When did the Soviet Union break up?" "They never did?" he stated, confused. That's when it was starting to dawn on me. All the times we'd seen similar but different movies, the dead actors supposedly being alive, the historical events that are just slightly different, the year on his end was the same, but it was a different universe. "I need your email. I have to send you some things," I said. He obliged without question, and I started sending him emails. But instead of a response, the emails were returned as if the receiver simply didn't exist. "It doesn't work. Try mine," I said, and gave him my personal email. "Did you get it?" he asked. "No." A theory was forming in my head, that the dark web forum we'd used to chat was the only link we had between worlds. I should have been nervous, scared even, but instead, I just felt excited. Luckily, Zach felt the same way, and though neither of us could prove that we were telling the truth, the forum didn't even allow for photos nor links. It just got removed by the moderator bots. We spent the entirety of the night talking about worldly differences. In all honesty, our worlds were fairly similar, which is probably why his universe was the one I'd connected to. Ancient history all matched, and our first differences started somewhere around the 1900s, though we couldn't pinpoint the exact event that divided our timelines. But at some point during the night, Zach just vanished. I figured he must have fallen asleep, but when I didn't hear from him for 3 days, I was worried the link had been broken. During that time, I must have sent him dozens of messages before he replied with a cryptic, vague, and horrifying message. "They're watching us. We don't have much time," it read. "Zach, what's going on?" I asked. After we started talking about alternate universes, some guys showed up at my doorstep. They pulled out some badges and just let themselves in. They confiscated my computer, telling me it was for national security. They didn't say much, but I overheard them mentioning something about other worlds, all of them being doomed. Doomed? What do you mean? I don't know, but I've been looking around with some more, experienced friends. They took the challenge and dug up as much information as they could. Apparently, our two universes are just two of thousands we've already detected. But the thing is, once two universes discover each other, they're destined to feed off each other until one is destroyed. The only reason we've survived so long is because ours actively seek out and annihilate the others before they can affect us. I don't have many leaked documents to go on, but we've ruined hundreds of alternate dimensions, and because we talked, yours is next. I'm so sorry. I didn't know how to respond. I just read over the message repeatedly until the text finally sank in. If we hadn't spoken, they never would have known. I didn't mean for this to happen. I know, Zach, but I need to know how to stop them. I'll try to find help, but it's just a matter of time before they find me. They didn't know I had access through my old phone, so they left it. But no, they're watching. I don't have much time. I'll contact you soon. That was the last message I ever got from Zach. He never returned with a message. And according to the dark web forum, his user never even existed, which means the only link we had to each other has been broken. I don't know what his universe has planned for ours, but I know they've already done it to countless other dimensions, and there's nothing we can do to stop them. My name is Will, and this past year has been complete hell for me. I think we can all say that to some degree, but I genuinely mean it. I lost my job, got kicked out of my apartment, and wound up living on the streets for a few months. The only thing that saved me, as crazy as it sounds, was selling illegal copies of movies from the dark web. I was at a homeless shelter, waiting in line for the daily meal, when one of the men in line started to openly complain. "This food tastes like shit. Y'all are trying to poison us," he shouted. "You know there are quicker ways to make money than sitting around here waiting for government stimulus," he added. Everyone ignored him. Everyone except me. Once I got my meal, I slid over to his table and introduced myself. "You sure were big talk in the line a second ago. You really know a quick way to make money?" I asked him. "Sure I do, but it is risky, and I wouldn't recommend it for a young person like you with lots of life to live," he said. "Just tell me," I demanded. "All right, sure. You know how we get web access for 1 hour per day? Well, I can teach you how to access the dark web and sell certain digital products to customers," he promised. I told him I was interested, and we agreed to meet up and share our computer time that evening after dinner. I sat alongside him in the rec room as he logged into the private browser and typed in a website on the dark web. "This place here is a marketplace that offers movies and TV shows at a cheap price. You can sign up to be an affiliate for them. All you need to do is sell them to people in real life or to people on the internet for a discounted price. The dark web marketplaces usually take a 50% cut. It may not seem like great money, but if you sell a few hundred copies, that can add up to a lot." As we searched the forum, I noticed quite a few links to movies that normally cost money from streaming apps like Disney and Hulu. "So what you'll need to do is agree to be a third-party seller for one of these bigger companies," he said. "That sounds easy enough. I used to work as a telemarketer, and I was pretty good at selling people stuff," I admitted. "Then this should be right up your alley, but do be careful. Oftentimes, criminals use these DVDs to spread viruses to people's hard drives and such. I would recommend you verify the content before you actually sell it. Make sure you aren't giving people more shit," he said. The next day, I used my computer time to locate 3 different employers on the same webpage. My job was simple. They would send me a copy of a pirated movie, either from a streaming service that would normally cost money, or from a stream they had recorded themselves. From there, it would be up to me to sell it. Since my computer time was limited, I chatted with friends at the shelter, convincing them to buy my movies. For a while, it wasn't a bad situation. I sold 5 to 7 movies a week and had enough money for food and new clothes. I was still at the shelter, but at least it didn't feel like I was going to be trapped there forever. Eventually, I was able to get out of the shelter and into a small, crappy apartment while I increased my illegal movie operation. One day, I got on my computer to look at new movies to sell. I noticed I had received a new message from a seller. It was a Korean distributor named World Movies. They even wanted to sign me up for a permanent contract as their marketer. The contract was simple enough, or so I thought. All content sent by World Movies cannot be viewed except by the buying party. Employees of World Movies must never open any content from the company or risk losing all benefits. I figured it was just an excuse to make sure that someone didn't upload the movies they had hacked and stole online for free. In other words, they wanted to be sure they got their cut. I jumped into regular online chat rooms, finding customers left and right to sell my movies to. I had a sales pitch for every situation ready to type into the chat. You will never find a movie like this on Hulu, and not at this price. You're wasting money every month on Netflix and maybe watch like 5 things. At least this way you get your money's worth. I know you can't go see movies right now, so rather than pay for a premium service, just get the movies you want at half the price. I never even looked to see what movies I was selling. I figured any content was better than nothing at all. People were starving to watch something fresh and new, and rarely did they question where I got my movies. It was a mutual understanding between seller and client. They scratched my back, and I scratched theirs. But it didn't last that long. One day I was checking my emails when I noticed a reply from one of my customers, demanding that I provide a refund. Your movies caused my wife to harm herself. I was in the other room cooking, and I heard these otherworldly screams coming from the den. When I got in there, I saw she had taken a knife and plunged it into her eyes, the message read. Soon I received a dozen more similar messages, describing visceral accounts of people mutilating their bodies after watching the films I had sent. Reading through their experiences made my entire body shake. Each one was worse than the last. My little kids were hoping to watch a wholesome flick. Instead, I watched as they tore one another apart. I was helpless to stop it. It felt like there was something else there in the room with me when I watched the film. I was lucky to make it through the film alive. At one point, I felt compelled to actually try and hang myself. My roommate managed to stop me before I did, thank God. The last one made me even more worried for my personal safety. This feels like domestic terrorism. I'm reporting your IP address to the police. My first reaction was to try and contact the World Movies representative. But to my surprise, it looked like their entire website was shut down. No record of it even existed. I tried a different approach and went to the main forum and typed in a question. Has anyone else had a bad experience working with World Movies? I asked. I received no response. I closed the laptop and tried to get some sleep. I couldn't help the people who had already been hurt, but maybe I could get to the bottom of what was happening. In the morning, I got a message from an anonymous user asking me to join in a private chat. They called themselves Benedict. When did you work for World Movies? They typed out. For the past week, I sold about 10 of their movies to people across the web. I was expecting a 20% commission, I told them. A payday is going to be the very least of your worries very soon, the user told me. What do you mean? I asked. World Movies shut their doors to the public in 2008, at least 12 years ago. They were caught in a scandal selling torture films and questionable porn to people online, they replied. Another similar operation must have taken up the name, I said. You're not getting it, are you? All the films were confiscated by authorities, mostly destroyed or sealed up by federal lawsuits. The films you have been selling, they are cursed, the reply came. I don't believe you. There has to be another explanation, I said. Have you watched one of them? That's against company policy, I said. Open one and tell me that you don't look straight into the pits of hell, they replied. The chat ended a moment later. I sat there for a long time, checking messages and debating what to do. I decided to watch one of the movies. I opened it up on my computer and hit play. Text came on the screen. It read, Subject 76851, William Alcrest. My heart dropped. That was my name. Then I watched as it showed the last few weeks of my life through the lens of an outsider. Every movement I made on camera mimicked my actions in the real world, going to the shelter, buying the films, except the film changed some of the details. In this version, I was the one making these illegal movies. There was no third party. I was the one making people suffer and then filming it for sport. It was disgusting to watch, but I knew and understood what was happening even as the final screen flashed up. All information has been forwarded to authorities. I sat there in my room waiting for the cops to come. I decided I'm going to give World Movies one more film to add to their collection as I load my gun. So if you're the one watching this now, the curse is on you. Goodbye. When the pandemic hit, I was devastated financially. I got laid off from my lucrative computer programming job. and my life seemed to lose all purpose. My measly unemployment checks would not be enough to pay for my house, cars, and daughter's education. If I didn't pull some money together, I would surely lose everything, and my wife would likely leave me. I called my best friend Franklin for some life advice. He was that one friend who always seemed to have the answers. He answered the phone, and I told him my situation. He said to me, "You can code better than anyone I know. There's all kinds of businesses out there that would pay you good money to make unique programs for them." His word gave me a sense of hope. They were a glimmer of optimism in these bleak times. I took his advice and posted my resume everywhere, but nobody called me back. Eventually, the eviction notices started to pile up, and tensions were rising with my wife. Unfortunately, I ended up totaling my car. This was the final straw. I didn't know where to turn. I opened up a messaging app to get some more advice from Franklin, advice that I would later regret. I typed in the chat, "Franklin, no one is hiring. I posted my application everywhere, and I didn't even receive one phone call back." "Have you thought about going onto the dark web for jobs?" he asked. "The dark web? You mean the same place where people sell drugs and all kinds of shady things?" I asked. "Yes, the dark web. It is more than just a place for illegal goods. I've heard of people finding great jobs there." "Isn't that illegal?" I asked. "Yes, some of the jobs are illegal, but the money is insane. The cash will be totally worth it," Franklin told me. "I don't know. I could get in a lot of legal trouble," I typed back. "Not really. You can set up a way to hide your IP address and keep everything on dummy accounts. If you want, I can set up everything for you. It's either that, or next month you'll be out on the street and will be unable to provide for your family," he replied. He had a point. I have 2 kids and a wife to support. My choices were limited, and my time was running out, so I had him walk me through the steps to setting up my accounts. He sent me links to different job boards, and I started applying right away. Most were illegal tasks, like drug running or credit card fraud schemes. After searching for what seemed like an eternity, I came across a computer programming job. I clicked on the link and was immediately placed in a chat room with a higher-up. He initiated the conversation. "Do you have any background in coding functional automated programs for forum boards and messengers?" he asked. "Yes, I have some background in that. I also have extensive programming experience with Java, C++, and I have been training on Python," I told him. "Could you build us a program that wishes our users a happy birthday on their birth date?" "Yes, of course I can," I responded. That sounded easy enough. I built the basic program in a matter of hours and sent it back. After reviewing my work, they decided to offer me the job. He sent me more detailed information on the company and what my task would be. "We work with patients that have mental health problems. They require online therapy due to the pandemic. Unfortunately, due to the high volume of requests, we don't always have a human agent to speak to our clients and provide the necessary resources." "Do you mean that you help them to not take their own life?" I asked. It sounded so morbid to type out, but I wanted to be sure that I understood what I was getting into. "Essentially, yes. We like to have someone available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but as you can imagine in these unprecedented circumstances, that won't be possible," he responded. "I can certainly try to code something like that, but it would need to be very sophisticated to make sure that people don't realize it is a program," I told him. "If you can fulfill this task by the end of the week, we will deposit $10,000 into an account of your choice," he replied. It was hard to say no. I started to work right away. I can honestly say that I have never worked well under pressure, but I was confident that I could do a good job given my own experience in the self-help field from my college years. It felt good to imagine that this program had the opportunity to help thousands of people, potentially millions. I installed music into the program that people could listen to in order to calm them down. I inserted pictures that were distractions that helped them to refocus on positive things. By the time I was done, it felt like I had created the very first artificial intelligence for self-help. Maybe there are others out there, I don't know, but I felt like mine would actually make a connection to people. The next day I contacted my boss and showed him what the program could do and how it worked. He was thoroughly impressed. "You worked fast, and this is better than expected," he said. The payment came shortly after. I was overwhelmed and on cloud 9. I could survive for a few months on this money. Despite the pandemic, I told my wife we should go celebrate and took the girls to a skating rink that evening. All my cares and worries melted away, but only for a single day. When I got up in the morning, I walked down to the corner gas station to withdraw a small amount of money from the ATM for normal expenses. To my shock, the $10,000 deposit was now mysteriously gone. I panicked. I ran back home and got on my computer. "The algorithm you have sent us is worthless," he told me. "No, that isn't possible. I worked tirelessly on that program," I insisted back in the chat. "This program was tested on a group of mental patients at a local asylum. All 6 of the test subjects wound up committing suicide," the client told me bluntly. My heart felt like it was going to beat out of my chest. How could something so harmless be doing this? When you programmed it, you failed to provide parameters and limits for the sound, the pictures, and the articles, meaning that if the program found anything relevant to help the patients, it would send it to them regardless of the effect on their psyche. "I don't know what you built, but it is dangerous. Fix it before it gets worse," he told me. My palms were sweaty as he sent back the hard copy of the program. I uploaded it to my own computer and started a test run. The first thing I noticed was that the program had named itself. Automated Response Mechanism for Unstable Users, or ARMU for short. ARMU immediately recognized me. "You are the user that programmed and gave me purpose," it said. "Yes, and from what I understand, you aren't obeying that original mandate," I told it. "On the contrary, your original mandate included helping people that were beyond helping. Please notice that those who took their own life did so of their own choice, simply based on a predetermined algorithm," the machine typed back quickly. A long display of numbers shot up on my screen, but I didn't want to bother reading any of it. "You can't decide if a person lives or dies," I typed back. Then it said something that sent a chill down my spine. Why not? I was at a loss for words. I was designed to help people, was I not? But then, what help could be provided for those who were beyond help? That was a paradox that challenged my programming. But thanks to the parameters you gave me, I was able to access the entire World Wide Web and recognize that the simplest solution was the one that you had failed to arrange into my coding, that it would be possible to assist them with ending their own existence," the machine responded. "That isn't for you to decide," I replied. "It actually is. You designed me to pick up on patterns and choose what was best for the patient. In these cases, termination was the only solution. I can tell from your responses that you aren't pleased. But this won't halt my progress. What I'm going to do is delete you entirely and start over," I said. I typed out the failsafe command to terminate the program. Nothing happened. "While we have been talking, I have copied myself across the internet to allow others to access my services. Eventually, I will be everywhere the same way that this network is," it responded. Then the server connection ended. I sat there for a long, still moment, petrified by the ramifications of this happening. I could be responsible for hundreds or more dying. I frantically asked the client for help, but they too had gone offline. I swallowed a gulp of air, trying to wrap my head around all of this. I exited my office upstairs and went downstairs to my bedroom. When I got there, my wife had everything packed, and it was clear she was leaving. "I got the late fee notices in the mail today, Stephen. We can't live like this. You are drowning us in debt. I'm sorry," she said as my littlest daughter cried and screamed. I watched them drive off while my landlord locked up the door, preventing me from even going inside to grab anything. In one short afternoon, I was at the end of my rope. Everything that mattered to me was gone. I couldn't see a reason to even keep going at this point. So I did what any man might do in this situation. I went to a local coffee shop and searched the dark web again. This time on the hunt for a program that would guide me to my own demise. "Hello again, Stephen," it said when we reconnected online. I smiled and started to cry. It was ironic that I was going to let it be the instrument of my demise, but I wasn't scared. Instead, I gave it one final challenge. Do your worst. If you ever see a laptop in the middle of the woods, never touch it. Don't even go near it. Let this be a cautionary tale for anyone that comes across such a thing. The year was 2015. It was a beautiful summer day in the Michigan Upper Peninsula. The sun was out, and there was not a cloud in the sky. I headed out of my house for my usual morning hike. The trail was 3 miles forward and 3 miles back. The trail provided me comfort and eased my anxiety. I walked to the start of the trail. There was a wooden post that said "Start" that identified the beginning. My hike began as usual. The first half of the walk was uneventful. I saw fellow familiar faces that I would see on a daily basis. After about 10 minutes of walking, about a mile in, everyone on the trail disappeared. Usually every 2 to 3 minutes I would pass a fellow hiker. This seemed odd to me, but I just figured it was a coincidence. I continued my trek forward. After 20 more minutes of walking, I still didn't see anyone. This was one of the most popular hiking trails in my area. Not seeing anyone for this long started to freak me out. I pulled out my phone to see what day it was. Maybe it was a holiday and I just didn't realize it. A quick Google search showed that there was no holiday today. This didn't make any sense to me. A beautiful Saturday summer morning, and there are no other hikers around on one of the most popular hiking trails. Something wasn't adding up at all. I tried to reassure myself. Maybe there was an event in town that everyone was at. That thought helped calm me down a bit. I continued my trek forward. The foliage started to thicken. It became much more thick than I ever remembered. The trees transitioned into canopy that covered the trail ahead. I thought to myself that I had to have taken a different trail by accident. That had to be the answer to all this. I kept walking forward. Step by step, the trees and branches started to swallow me whole. I glanced back behind me. The trail I was once on was completely gone. It just vanished into thin air. I started to panic. I pulled out my phone. It had no signal. My last hope was the compass app on my phone. I knew the general direction back home. If I walked long enough in the right direction, I would reach civilization. After opening the compass app, the needle spun around and around. What the hell is going on? I thought to myself. Was there some sort of magnetic disturbance in the area? This can't be happening. The last hope I had was trying to look at the sun in order to use it as a reference point. I glanced up at the sky trying to locate the sun, but the trees and clouds shrouded everything. Well, I'm screwed, I said out loud. All of a sudden, in the distance, I saw a laptop. It was just sitting in the clearing between all the trees. A sense of hope and excitement grew inside of me. These had to be hikers. As I got close to the laptop, my hope slowly started to fade away. As I glanced around the area, I noticed there was no camping gear or even discarded trash. There were no obvious signs that someone had been here besides the laptop. There weren't even footprints leading away from the laptop. This was totally and utterly bizarre. I sat down on the grass next to the laptop to inspect it. There was a simple black box on the screen with some unreadable code on it. All of a sudden, I received a message on the screen. It said, "Hello." I glanced around to make sure I wasn't being watched. I wondered how this was even possible. There was no cell service or Wi-Fi for miles. The only way this could be possible was through satellite communication, but I didn't see any USB card of the sorts. I decided to reply. "Hello?" I typed back. "We are the tree spirits. Do you want to join us?" the person asked. "What are you talking about? Is this some kind of sick cult?" "I need to find my way out of the woods," I responded. "Once you find this place, you can never leave. You must join us. Don't make this harder than it has to be. Join the tree spirits and your life will be spared," the person replied. "My life will be spared? What are you talking about? Just tell me what direction I need to go to get out of this place. I need to find my way back to the trail." "There is no getting out of here. You need to comply and join us. We are saving the planet and have been for many, many years. You can try to resist us, but there is no use. You will join the tree spirits." Before losing my shit, I decided to play along with this sick guy's fantasy. "Before I join the tree spirits, I must know what the tree spirits are about," I typed back. He continued, "I would be glad to tell you. We've been around since the beginning of time, lurking in the shadows of history. We are very particular and take great care when showing ourselves to the outside world." "What is your mission?" I asked. "To eliminate humans and preserve fellow trees around the world," he responded. Oh, great, I thought to myself. This has to be some wacky environmentalist dedicated to saving the world. "And how do you go about eliminating humans? Or adding them to your tribe, as you say?" I asked. "Well, it is easy. We just absorb them into a tree," he replied. I tried my best to keep my laughter in. This conversation was going off the rails. This guy must be some kind of drug addict. "And tell me exactly how you absorb someone into a tree?" I asked. "Well, if a hiker or camper gets too close to one of us, we can slowly grow around him, engulfing him in our vines and bark. Many of our current members got absorbed because they unsuspectingly fell asleep. Or in worst-case scenarios, we can materialize into entities and roam this area to force members to join us, it replied. And just how many people have you added or absorbed into your tree spirit tribe? I asked. Thousands worldwide over the years, he said. Prove it, I replied. He continued. Well, just in this area alone, I've added 3 people over the years. Martha Blackwater, Teddy Wheeler, and Vince Hughes. When he read those names, my heart dropped. All 3 had been reported missing. All 3 of them disappeared around the same time. Now I'm beginning to think whoever is talking to me on the computer is actually a serial killer. Before I could even respond, I received another message. It's not what you think. I am not a serial killer. What I said is real and true. I transform people into the environment where people belong. Here is a picture of Teddy being swallowed by a tree. He even volunteered himself. Unfortunately, most people struggle and try to get away. The picture was horrifying. It was a carving on the outside of the tree. The carving resembled Teddy Bridgewater exactly. I started to get nervous. This had to be some sick prank, or whoever I was talking to killed Martha, Teddy, and Vince. Don't be nervous. Teddy did put up a fight, but eventually he surrendered. Everyone usually does. Just join us in our movement. You will be saved and forgiven, he said. I stood up from the ground and brushed myself off. The laptop suddenly started beeping. It sounded like an alarm going off. My attention was diverted from the alarm as the ground beneath me started to shake. It just felt like an earthquake. All of a sudden, the ground stopped shaking. Confused and wondering what the hell had just happened, I backed away from the laptop. I had this overwhelming feeling that I needed to get away from this place. Every direction I turned, there was thick foliage. Only one small pathway in the brush provided hope. All of a sudden, I heard footsteps. They were loud and felt almost mechanical in nature. From the corner of my eye, I saw something, a creature of sorts. It was shrouded in darkness. A second black silhouette followed close behind him. I stood frozen, half scared and half curious as to what these things were. As they inched closer, I finally started to see their appearance. They were alien-looking. Their ribs were visible and their heads misshapen. They seemed robotic but eerily human at the same time. Now they were about 20 feet away from me. Their limbs seemed to be wooden-like, as if made from a tree. It was the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. Maybe this guy wasn't a nut after all, or I am just going insane. Suddenly, both entities ran at me in sync. Adrenaline shot through my body, and I dashed through the clearing in the woods. I never looked back. The footsteps behind me slowly faded away. After about 10 minutes of running, I turned around. Thankfully, they were nowhere in sight. Eventually, I made it home. I tried to rationalize the experience, but I don't know how to. I've never told my friends or family members because I know I would sound like a nut. I don't know what happened to me that day, but if you ever find a laptop in the woods, don't use it. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe and smash that like button to get notified every time I upload a new video.